Whatever.
Are we done?
I think we're done.
We're done, but I want to wrap up the episode
Okay.
with a second installation of Moviesucktastic Theater.
Oh.
Where
okay.
I read excerpts from the novel The Terrible Game, from which the film Gymkata was created.
I know, I enjoyed that the last time.
So this is section 2. I'm going to do this until we get tired of doing it, or until the copyright holders contact me. So we ended on page 1. I'm going to do just half a page.
Okay.
So next installation is The Terrible Game, part 2. Or my part 2. We're still on chapter 1. We're still on the first page, but it's my part 2.
Just fucking read it.
The Terrible Game.
Holy shit. When am I supposed to cut in the music at this point?
Whenever you feel like it. Right now.
Right now.
And now, the next segment of The Terrible Game. Suddenly, the lighter of the two figures aimed a vicious slash at his heavier opponent's left side. The larger man whipped his sword swiftly across the front of his body and easily parried it. Instantly, his attacker twisted his wrist through a half circle. The hook at the end of his blade spun around and caught the hook of his opponent's weapon. The lighter man jerked back his sword arm viciously, dragging his opponent's blade with it. His heavy antagonist was spun halfway around. Before he could recover, the thick, blunt blade of his attacker's knife slammed into the lacquer covering in the middle of his back. The heavy man grunted. Then he lowered his sword and laughed. His voice was deep and pleasant. "Good work, Jonathan. I'm dead. Hooked like a flounder." Jonathan smiled delightedly. When his father gave a compliment, it really meant something. "I was just trying to figure out last night, Dad, why they put hooks on these weapons at all. I was swinging mine around in my room thinking there must be some very tricky use for the hook to make up for the fact that it made the sword useless for thrusting." He held up the hooked blade for the 100th time, wondered what the design of the blade meant. A beautifully Damascened? That's embarrassing. A beautifully Damascened horseman thrusting a lance through with a hanging ring. Jonathan looked at his father. "With an ordinary saber, you can't pull at your opponent. You can only thrust at them or cut. The hook could be for jerking the other fellow off balance so you could stab him with your knife." He rotated his wrist and the hook revolved in a vicious circle. "Look, Dad, no one is afraid of being hooked with a sword. A man with this type of weapon could take an ordinary opponent terribly by surprise." Jonathan looked slyly at his father. "The way I did you." So that was the second installment with plenty of jerking and hooking.
I can understand that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm already perturbed because there are no hooked swords in Gymkata.
I don't remember seeing any.
No. So this is interesting. This is going to be this is a departure from the film that I'm quite interested in pursuing.